Hey guys, what's going on? This is Jason from Vape 3D, and today I want to do something a little bit different for you guys. I want to do a 3D design tutorial. As you know, the other day I released a dual 18650 battery case, and the response was kind of overwhelming. And I really kind of enjoy giving back to the community that has made Vape 3D and my hobby for 3D printing possible. And I noticed that I got quite a few questions on how to do kind of basic things, and I frequently get asked, hey, what program do you use? What printers do you have? And I have a couple different printers, but the program that I use is now Autodesk Fusion 360. So that's what I'm going to be doing the tutorials in. This program is free-ish. You have to meet one of, I believe it's 3 criteria. One, you have to be in education, so a student or a teacher. You have to either be a hobbyist or tinkerer, which I think most of you guys will fit into. Or you have to be a business that makes under $100,000 a year. If you're not, if you're a regular established business, there's a subscription cost, but it's still significantly less than a lot of the other software out there. And I like Fusion 360. I like the Autodesk layout just better than the other lower priced alternatives. A lot of people swear by SketchUp, and it's a great, powerful program. I just didn't really like how it's laid out. I don't like the workflow in it. And 123D is also made by actually Autodesk. But I feel that it's a little bit more basic, and if you can get Fusion 360 for the same price or a nominal cost, you could always simplify your Fusion to go to 123D, whereas it's harder to, you may not be able to scale up as well. So we're just going to do it in Fusion. But a lot of this can be done in 123D as well. We won't be doing anything too complex that you shouldn't be able to easily carry over to any other design application. So I'm going to be doing, today what we're going to be making is a atomizer stand and juice holder, a small one. And I'm going to try to explain to you as I go through kind of the methodology of things beforehand. So we're going to start off obviously on a blank slate here. And one common misconception is, in my opinion, for workflow, is you don't want to start with a 3D shape right away. Typically what I do is I'll get all my measurements out. If I'm going to be building around an atomizer, I'll get my calipers and write the measurements down on a sheet of paper. And then what I like to do is I make that into a 2D sketch on Fusion 360. So what we're going to do is we're going to, like I said, we're going to be creating a, it's going to be 2 atomizer holder and 2, it actually may work out to be 3, and 2 juice bottle holders, 30 milliliter glass bottles. So the way I design is you design from the top down and the bottom up. So with 3D printing, you actually build from the bottom up, or layer 1 to whatever layer the top layer is. So when you go ahead and when you design, you should follow that same concept. So what I'm going to do is typically when I sketch from the top down. In Fusion 360, we're going to go to Create Sketch, and we're going to select what plane we want to start off on. Obviously, I want to start on the bottom. So when you go to the top down, you can click this here. This is actually the XZ plane, which if you look at it from the front, you'll see that it would be kind of like, assume this is your print bed, right? That's the best way to put it. Here's your print bed. So we're looking top down straight on, and this is our view controls up here. The first thing I want to do is I want to build the whole, excuse me, for the juice holder. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to take, oh, by the way, this is your Explorer here. So this is going to show you your sketches, and then when we create the solids, it'll go from there. So the first sketch we're going to do is it's going to be a center diameter circle, which means we find the center point and we set the diameter, and it'll give you the size of the circle. Now again, I know this is basic stuff for people that have designed already, but if you haven't, this is assuming this is a brand new design for you. So I took a measure of a 30 milliliter glass bottle that I have, and it's actually about just under 34 milliliters or millimeters wide. So I'm going to make it 34.5. So we have a little bit of extra wiggle room. And right there this is a 34.5 millimeter circle to represent the hole that we're going to cut or create for our first juice bottle. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this. We're going to copy and paste it. Since we want another 34 millimeter or 34.5 millimeter circle, we're going to move this over, and it's moving in increments of 5. So now, if we put it right here, it's going to be a little close. I'm not too crazy about that. So let's go ahead and, so 34.5 would move it exactly to touching the next one. So you have to do a little bit of math, or you can actually have it move. You can do math in the program, right? So if we do 34.5, right, that's going to move us, the X distance is going to move us directly so that it's touching, it's intersecting the line. So we want 34.5, and let's give it a little bit of room to breathe. So let's do 34.5 plus 2. So essentially it's 36.5, right? And as you can see here, it did the math for you. So what we did was we just created 2 identical circles on the same x-axis or horizontal axis, 2 millimeters apart, and we did a representation or represented by math. So here, part of our stand, we have now, like I said, the 2 juice bottle holders. The next thing we want to do is we're going to sketch our atomizer holders. So this is where we're going to play around with this a little bit, because I actually haven't done this. So the common 18650 atomizer is 22 millimeters wide, but tanks and other atomizers and everything, excuse me, get a little bit wider. So let's give it 24.5 millimeters. That seems to be a pretty good width for an atomizer holder. Now, I want to make at least 2 of these. Copy and paste. And if we move this over, 36.5 millimeters, excuse me. Our atomizer is going to be directly in line with our with the juice well. So that's good for now. And you know what? I think I'm kind of okay with this as well. Keeping them kind of directly in line. Again, this is just for the sake of a basic stand. So we're gonna right now we have 2 atomizer holders, or what's going to be an atomizer holder, and 2 juice bottle holders. Now, the one thing I don't really like here is I don't like that this is so close to this here. So we're going to move this on the y-axis. We're going to move this down, or in this case, actually, negative, which is down off the negative off the y-axis. We're going to move this down another 2 millimeters. Oops. And you know what? I actually copied and duplicated the other one, so we'll just delete that other one. And we'll do the same thing here. And this also works where if I wanted to do the same thing, you can just shift click and move from here. Okay. Now, this is the outer part of the atomizer circle. So the next thing we need is the circle for where the 510 is going to be. So we're going to go ahead and sketch a center point circle, or center diameter circle. And they're roughly about just under 7 millimeters wide, the 510 connection. So we'll just make this 7¼ millimeters and put it right in the middle. And again, there's an anchor point right here. So you can just click and there's your circle. 7.25, done. So here we have, just to give you kind of a top-down look, we have our 2 juice well holders, and now we have our atomizers. The only thing left really for us to do is to create the case for it. So let's go ahead and, just to make it a little easier, let's go ahead and we're just going to do a basic rectangle case around this. Nothing too fancy right now. We'll give it a little bit of room. So I'm going to go to the top left corner to the bottom right and give it a little bit of room off to the side. It's about 3 millimeters off. So now we're just about even. Again, we could fill out and get this perfect, but for the sake of this tutorial, I want you to just get an idea for what we're doing here. Now, we can modify this we can modify this at the sketch level, or we can modify the way this looks on the 3D level. For aesthetic changes, I like to do it on the 3D plane, and I'll show you what that means. So this is essentially our stand here. Again, it's very basic. It's very actually, you know what? We have a little bit of room here. Why don't we do you know, why don't we do a 510 holder? Hang on one second. Okay, yeah, you know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna add one more just to kind of fill in this middle part here. We're gonna add a space for a drip tip. So they're about 8 millimeters wide, so we'll give it 8.5 because usually we'll kind of shoot out a little bit. So we'll give it there. Now, so we have two 30 milliliter bottles and a 510 and a 22 millimeter atomizer and a drip tip holder. Let's stop our sketch. So here's our stand, a 2D, boring, not very useful stand. So now we have to build this up. So each section here that's highlighted is a selectable section that Fusion will kind of separate from each other. So you want to build like I said in the beginning, you want to build the lowest point first and build it upward. So the lowest points for this is going to be your juice bottle, the bottom of your juice bottle, and the 510 atomizers, because I'd like to keep them kind of bottoming out at the same time. And less is more, and I found a good base for things is about 2 millimeters. That should get you about 4 to 6 layers, upwards to 8 before you before it starts laying the base. But it's thin enough that it's not taking up too much space, but it's strong enough to give you a nice solid base or foothold. So what we're going to do here is, instead of creating a pre-made shape, we're going to create what's called an extrude. And we're going to extrude, and we're going to shift click because it's easier. The base is here, and the 2 circles here. We're going to extrude those 2 millimeters. We're going to have it go out one side to create a new body, and don't worry about changing the distance. And if you go back to the front, you'll see we have, these highlights here. If you look here, we actually have 4 solid pieces that we've created out of our sketch. Now, what Fusion's going to do is it's going to delete or hide our sketch and add our body. Now you'll see that all 4 bodies, each one is its own thing. What we're going to do here is we're going to unhide the sketch and go to our next highest spot that we're going to want to build out, and that's going to be the place where our atomizers are going to rest. So it's about 7.5 millimeters from the bottom of the 510 to where the atomizer begins. So we're going to do 7.5. Obviously, this is basic math, so you could just type in 9.5 and you'd be fine with that as well. So we're just going to do 9.5 and hit OK to that. So now we've extruded our where the atomizer is going to sit. This is where the juice bottle is going to sit. This is where the atomizer is going to sit. The next lowest point is going to be where the drip tip holder is going to be, and I kind of want that to be right on the surface. And to get an idea for that, what we would do is we would actually kind of subtract from the surface, or we can do, in this case, it's about, let's just say 5 millimeters down. So what we would need to do is we would need to know how high up we're going to make this this stand, and I think we're going to make this 16 millimeters. So we're going to do 16 minus about 5. So we're going to extrude this about 11 millimeters, I think. And again, I'm doing this on the fly, so I apologize. I didn't expect to put that one in there. So now, if you look at this before we make the top, we have a 2 millimeter base here, a 2 millimeter base at the bottom of the 510. We then expanded that to a 9.5 millimeter base to build your 510 resting place. And all that's left really is our stand. So we're going to bring that up. Like I said, we're going to bring it up 16 millimeters, and guess what? Let's hide the sketch so we don't have to look at that. Here's your stand. Now that admittedly looks kind of plain and boring, so I'm going to show you another tool here. The tool that we're going to use to kind of clean up the edges a little bit is called a fillet, and that's F-I-L-L-E-T, so that's why it's not fillet. And I'm just shift clicking the corners here. A fillet works off of straight lines, off of 3D objects, or you can do this in 2D. But again, I'll show you why I like doing this in 3D. This is what's called a parametric design program. So if you look in the bottom of my document here, there's a timeline forming right here. And if you notice, here's the sketch I created, and here's the 4 extrudes that I've done. You can modify those extrudes at any time on the timeline, and the design will adapt around that. In 2D, you're just saving the sketch, and that's it. So it's much harder to modify a sketch that you've made versus a fillet or something in a 3D space where you can edit it off the timeline. So to get to the fillet menu, you go to Modify, Fillet, or hit the F key. Now watch what we're going to do here, and this is going to be a constant radius, or you can do chord length. For now, we'll do constant radius. And you can actually kind of play around with this and see how much of a curve you want. So let's start with 2. And if you look at the sides, you'll see that it curved in a little bit. I kind of want maybe a little bit more. We have a lot of empty space here. 5, that's looking pretty cool. Let's see what 10 looks like. Oops. Yeah, that brought it in a little bit, but if you notice, the sketch, or our original design, is still there. We're just kind of cutting away from it a little bit and adding, quite frankly, a fillet. So I like that. I think 10 is a good number for this. And if you want to get a little bit fancy, you can also go around the edge here. Actually, before I do that, let me show you the different. There's 2 different kind of edge modifications that you can do. So you can do the fillet, which, like I said, like we just did here, rounds it off. So obviously we're not going to do a 4mm fillet, but this is obviously for extreme cases. But you can see that it rounds it off. You can do a fillet, which rounds it, or you can modify and choose a chamfer, which is actually a straight line. To give you a better view of that, see how it kind of gives you a straight line up rather than a rounded edge like we did here. I think actually for this one, I kind of want the chamfer on this rather than the fillet. So let's give it like a 1mm fillet so we don't hit that. And then the other thing that we can maybe do to clean it up a little bit is we could, depending on the size, we should be able to fit a fillet on the inner circle of a circle. The inner circle of a circle. But yeah, and this is just kind of like tidying up, keeping things clean. We don't really need to do anything with the inside there. We kind of want the flat, like the right angles, so to speak. But aesthetically, we can do like a 1. Yeah, 1's kind of close. I wouldn't go any more than that. That should be fine, though. Let me just make sure that we're not... Yeah, it's going to be right up against it, but I think we should be okay with that. And I think the closeness there will kind of be outweighed by the better looking combination here. So I'm okay with that. Now, finally, the last thing I want to show you guys how to do, and like I said, this is kind of our, kind of has like a smile look to it, doesn't it? Is how to add text. Now, text is something that I typically do, or I do after we 3D model everything. You can go ahead, and this is it's actually a sketch. So we're going to sketch text, but instead of picking a plane like we did before, remember when we did the plane, we selected that box? In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to pick the actual solid face. Now, with this, I think I'm going to do, here we go. Let's do Vape 3D. And pick any font you want. I'm going to do the regular Vape 3D font. I like the Kenyan coffee. And for this, I'll just put it in the middle. There you go. It's not exact. And again, I can measure this out, but just for the sake of it, we're going to eye it up, and that looks pretty center to me. And you can, of course, adjust the height from the text right here. See? 10 actually looks pretty good from where that was. You can make it bold if you want to make it stand out a little bit more, or thin. Yeah, we'll keep it like that. I think it looks good. Stop the sketch. So you can see that it's highlighted. I'm going to hit E. We're going to highlight the lettering. Now it's going to try to do, if we leave it like this, it's going to try to stick the letters out. I don't want that. I want that to actually cut into the design. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the option to cut, and it's saying no target body to interact. Okay? So the reason why is because there's nothing cut. It's trying to cut out this way. We want it to cut backwards, so it's actually -1. Oops. And there you go. You find that it cuts in about 1 millimeter that way. Now, just so you guys know, 1 millimeter cut in plastic is actually pretty reliable and pretty nice. 1.5 is fine too. When you start getting into 4, like larger cuts, number one, I don't think it looks as good, and number two, you kind of need to, especially depending on the font, you have to make sure that the print is supported properly. So I like the one. That way you don't have to. It should be able to print nearly almost anything you're looking to print as far as lettering wise. So, and there you go. And that's a stand. And we did that in about 20 minutes or so. Again, I was kind of talking through it. This could have been done in just a few minutes. But yeah, here's the stand that's available. I'm going to go ahead and put this stand available on Thingiverse. But I'd really rather you not. I'm actually going to put the design files up there as well. And I want you to use it to look at the file, but I want you to make your own. Don't necessarily print this out or make this. Make something similar just so you get the idea for the basic things. So in this tutorial, you learn how to do a 3D sketch of circles, rectangles. You learn how to extrude. You learn how to do a fillet. You learn how to do a chamfer. You learn the difference between the two. And you learn how to add text to a document. Not too bad for 20 minutes. And you get a stand out of the deal. So I'm going to go ahead and print this out, share it on Thingiverse. If you guys like it, make sure you leave a like. And if you have any comments for doing it, I have no problem. I kind of like doing these tutorials for you guys. If there's something you want to see how to do, or something you want made, let me know. I'll post it there. And as always, check out the Facebook site, facebook.com/vape3d. Obviously, the shop is available on vape3d.com. And hit me up in the group on Facebook at Vape3D Labs and Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. But this has been Jason, a tutorial on how to make a stand. Hopefully you guys can now too. Have a good one, guys.